and good evening. And I'm Ann Sullivan, and I am an assistant professor of digital media at Georgia Tech. And I also run the Storycraft Lab there at Georgia Tech. And I am here to talk about Embroidered Ephemera, which is a casual creator that I made creating embroidery sampler designs from Twitter data. I am actually going to close this so I can see everything. Okay. It would help if the slides actually advance. There we go. So one thing I was really noticing as I was playing around with this is that in many ways, Twitter can be classified as a casual creator. It's got casual use. Obviously, it's got constraints in the number of characters, and there's automation and support, through it suggests hashtags, among other things. And there's definitely a user sense of pride over the artifacts. And in fact, there's often critiques of Twitter and tweets, especially around the idea that, tweeting is this casual, frivolous, and often ephemeral thing, especially when we look here that, there's over 9,000 tweets a second. And in the 1 minute that I did a clip here, it was over 545,000 tweets in 1 minute. And so these critiques often lead to this idea that because tweets are ephemeral, it leads to this practice of, oh, Twitter's just full of shit posts, slacktivism, and narcissism. But we know that that's not always the case. There's now plenty of examples of things that people have tweeted that have had long-lasting consequences, both for themselves and others, especially when you look at how much is being now used for politics and political awareness. So I wanted to do this critical examination of this assumption of the ephemeral nature of tweets. And I wanted to create something that would convey a sense of importance to the words that people are tweeting. And I wanted this thing that I created to also be long lasting. So I looked at embroidery samplers. And the reason why is because, well, there's numerous reasons, but one of the main reasons is that embroidery samplers can last for hundreds of years. This particular example in the picture here is from 1731. And they're often embedded with sayings and motifs that were meaningful to the crafter, and they tend to be highly decorative. So they give importance to the words, and those words were important to the creator. So from there, I created Embroidered Ephemera, which is some software that is a casual creator that uses tweets and Twitter data to generate embroidery sampler designs. So these are a couple of examples. The one on the left of Kate mentioning, if only there were a tool to turn my favorite drill tweets into traditionally styled heirloom quality embroidery projects. And here's a drill tweet, which I will not read. All right, so because the embroidery samplers are embedded with meaning by the creator, when they're traditionally done, I wanted to capture that in the tool. And so how does software embed meaning into something it creates? And here I decided to use data, because that's what it has access to, and try to use the data in meaningful ways without it turning out to be a strict data visualization. And I could talk more about the reasons for doing that, but I don't feel like I have time in this talk. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was try to capture the context of the tweet when I was generating the output. So this is a screenshot of what it looks like at first. By the way, it is currently very simple because it is a first iteration and there's still quite a bit of work to do on it. But you can start out by entering a name or a hashtag, a username or a hashtag, and then it finds all the tweets from the last 7 or 30 days for that person or hashtag. And the 7 or 30 days depends on whether I'm paying for it currently or not. It's a Twitter limitation for their API. And then what it does is it looks at all of the tweets that it gets back, and it finds the one that has the most engagement through likes, retweets, and comments. And because that tweet has had more importance placed on it by other people, it makes it more likely that it will choose that tweet. However, it does have a chance to choose any other tweet as well. It's just more likely to choose the one that has more engagement. So how the generator works, I will leave that to the paper because there's not enough time to go over it all, but to give you a very high level summary, we use Google sentiment analysis on the tweet that's chosen. And from there, from whatever Google assigns, which is some number between, I think, 0 and 1, it's not actually like saying, oh, this is sad or this is angry. Instead, it's just like, well, here's a number. We take that number and use 2D design principles to tie the Google sentiment analysis to design feeling of graphics and colors. And notice I'm saying design feeling and not content. So for instance, if a tweet is about flowers, it will not necessarily pull up graphics about flowers. So from there, we also use color palettes that are chosen from Color Lovers, which is a website and API that hosts community created palettes. And we just look at the most popular palettes because we needed some way to filter because there's a lot of color palettes that may not be as aesthetically pleasing. And so here are 2 examples. On the left, there's higher Google sentiment. So there's more angles and the colors are in the reds and pinks. Sorry, we're in the height of allergy season. And then on the right, the Google sentiment analysis returns something in a medium range. And so there's more flowing lines, and more organic shapes, and the colors tend more towards green. And there is some randomness in the colors, which I can discuss later. But overall, the idea is to capture the mood of what a person is tweeting through the use of graphics and color. Another thing that it can do is it's choosing these graphics, which are the bands. Each band or row of a graphic is chosen individually. And one of the borders it can choose can include words that are commonly used by that Twitter user. And so we use the term frequency, inverse document frequency analysis to basically find words that are unique to that user. And we store the top 10 and unique to that user compared to other Twitter users. So that's to get rid of words like the, and, etc. So on the left, we have an image, a design from a post by Max. And you can see that apparently Max uses the words yeah, like, and casual as some of his top 10 or some of their top 10 words. And then on the right is ICCC conference, which apparently that account uses papers, doctoral, and hashtag computational creativity fairly regularly, which makes sense. Also, I'll note that the design by Max is showing mostly squares and horizontal lines. That is because it has been, the Google sentiment analysis returned a low number, so it's low energy. So to look at the outcomes of the system, obviously there's some comedic and absurdist results, but there's also strong examples of the differences in tones being represented in the overall designs. So here are 2 examples where the colors are fairly similar, but the overall feel of the design is quite different. So on the left is a tweet by Pleasant Subtweets. They are about you. And I totally recommend following them, by the way, if you need some, like, something good in your Twitter feed. And so this is, you know, a tweet that says, "Did you know you are important?" And so that was evaluated to be more positive. So it is using those organic lines. Whereas this post by Twitter, it just says, well, that didn't work, was considered more negative. Okay, I'm like, am I getting a phone call? Or not more negative, it's lower. There is no value judgment here. So the thing, as I started using this tool more and watching other people use it, I was thinking about it as a casual creator, and there's definitely quite a bit about the enjoyment of creative process, which is productivity.
I can't hear.
Somebody's on the phone.
But... Yeah, 1 second. I'm gonna mute them.
Okay, I'll just keep talking. It definitely creates designs in a limited space, and it's using this text analysis to try to impart some meaning to that space. And it definitely restricts your choices and prevents hard failures. But one of the places where it really falls down is that there's no real feeling of ownership towards the design or a sense of pride in the creativity, unless it's your own tweet. And then it's pride in your own tweet being featured. And so that is a place where I felt like it really needed to be evaluated more. And to talk more about the user experience, the generator, quite a few people have used this generator, but so far I am the only person that has started actually creating an embroidery. And part of that is because it's really easy to generate designs. It takes about 4 seconds, but to actually create the embroidery takes about 300 hours. So, you need a pretty strong reason to do something that's going to take 100 hours to complete. And it also actually changed the crafting itself. It actually took quite a bit of the enjoyment away because it was less casual and much more task oriented. So like, here's a design, now go create it. And so in a way, creating this casual creator software made this, the actual process of crafting less of a casual creation process. And that was because it reduced the creativity and the ownership, which I mentioned earlier. And we found in earlier studies that creative expression is one of the main values of crafting. So removing that removes a lot of people's enjoyment of the craft. And so instead, the creativity when using this tool is actually more at the curation level. So deciding which things get added and which things don't. And here, this was, for me, I wanted to create different designs based on different political figures and kind of highlight their tweets and their tone and the content in a way that, highlighted what they were saying and how it might impact people. However, given that, it still turns out 300 hours is too much for a tweet because so many new tweets have happened that this is no longer the tweet I would choose to feature. A couple other issues real quick. Privacy and ethics. So yes, we use the public tweets, but you're creating something long lasting, especially if you create a embroidery that's going to last hundreds of years, and you're doing it without that person knowing. So the tweets may get erased, but that artifact remains. And in many cases, the embroidery lasts longer than the, it's going to be around for longer than the person who tweeted. For instance, this the sampler from 1817 where Roxana Carson says, "When I am dead and in my grave and all my bones are rotten, when this you see, remember me, or I shall be forgotten." We don't know who Roxana Carson is. And in fact, the only reason people know her name is because of this embroidery. And then the other issue is that right now it's very US centric. The APIs we're using English only sentiment analysis. The color choices we're making are using cultural implications that are very American focused. And even the embroidery samplers themselves were predominantly made in Europe and North America. So currently that is something that should really be addressed. And future work, I am already over, so I won't go too far into this, but basically those previous things I mentioned as issues, I'm interested in working on the design more to address them. So giving more control back to the user in the design phase, so the computer's not doing all the fun work. It leaves room for the interactor to actually do some of the fun creative parts as well. And also Google sentiment analysis is available in a few more languages. So being able to hook that up, I think would be a very important step, especially given that Twitter is used so globally. So thank you so much. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have. And down here is the link for how to get, oops, that actually moves that part there, for how to try it out yourself. Please be aware of privacy issues if you do. And thank you.